a very, very warm welcome to everybody who's logged in, and I'm sure we're waiting for a few more participants, but we will start because we do want to keep some part towards the end of the webinar to open up questions to the audience, where we can address some of their questions and their curiosity as well. So as everybody knows, the topic for today's webinar is unlocking the post-pandemic boom in luxury, and I'm very, very glad and thrilled to have on board with me as panelists Apurva Mishra, Apurva Mishra, is it? From from the collective at Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. She's heading the e-commerce space. And Neeraj Pandit, who's also, we can proudly say, an alumni of MG Raksim and currently the national head for John Distilleries. So welcome Apurva, welcome Neeraj, and without waiting further till we are still waiting for Majida, I would like to start with the questions. But before we begin, is there anything that you guys want to just say to our audience, or anything about the topic in general before we start firing questions at you? Neeraj.
Hi, and it's always wonderful interacting with you, Ms. Jain, and the SP Jain panel and students, potential students. And we are looking for a very interactive session. So yes, keep the barrage of questions coming. Let it be a fruitful session, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think I resonate with what Neeraj just said. Let's keep this session very, very interactive. Get all the
absolutely. So without any further wait, I'll start with my first question to the panel. So off late everybody's been talking about this splurge in luxury consumption, and people going out there and consuming luxury left, right, and center. And there's been so much of wait that people have been waiting for so long, 1.5 years almost, like since COVID hit, that now they can't seem to get enough of it. So is it true? So my question is, it has been surprising to see that even when all the industries suffered a setback, luxury only reached new heights in COVID-19. What do you think about this trend? Do you think this was true? Do you think this actually happened? What can you say about your industries?
I'll go.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, luxury has definitely benefited out of this pandemic trend, and I feel that there are two reasons for the same. One is that if you were to specifically speak about consumption in India of the consumers who live in India, there has been, there are only, if you were to look back at pre-pandemic time, these consumers would consume it when they travel abroad or when they return to India and shop in their duty-free zones, etc. Right now, that option is very limited, has been very limited. So that has been one trigger where the entire consumption globally has moved into India. Second major reason which I see is a more from the point that these consumers have been sitting at home. We have fewer occasions when we are getting out, meeting people, and celebrating. So whatever limited amount of celebrations which are coming in now, people want to make it a little more extra special, and hence even consumers who would shop into, let's say, mid-premium or bridge to luxury segments have now started to upgrade themselves and shop into really truly luxury brands. And I see that this is what is going to be a big trend going forward also, where people would either be either buy into where they're very cost conscious, or they would want to truly elevate themselves and buy into luxury. There's nothing going to be in the middle. That's my view on that.
Thank you, Apurva. And before we quickly move on to Neeraj, I'd just like to welcome Majida here. I can see that you've joined. So Majida, are you able to hear me? Can you switch on your
Yes,
video?
I can hear you, but I cannot switch on your on the video because it says that the host has stopped the
Maybe
video.
you can try right now, because I think they were just trying to assign you as co-host. So I think it should be possible now. Just try once again, please.
Clearly, IT is not the strong suit. I've switched on my video, but I think it will take a while to reflect.
Okay. Usually it happens instantly. So I mean, till the time your video is we're figuring out your video and everything,
Sure.
I'll quickly just reiterate the question that I did ask, and we just started with the first question, and
Sure.
Apurva was just giving her inputs, and now we also want to hear Neeraj's side, but I'll just quickly rephrase. So it has been surprising to see that even when all the industries suffered a setback, luxury only reached new heights in COVID-19. What do you think about this trend? So Neeraj, over to you, and then Majida, I appreciate also if you could give in your inputs.
Yeah, I think
Sure.
building upon what Apurva actually touched upon. If you see, initially in 2020, the focus was on just necessities, right? And people, in a way, were enforced or imposed upon to not spend in luxury, whether be it products or services, right? Because you are trapped in your four walls. Talking about my sector, the liquor retail shops were closed, restaurants obviously still suffering. So what did they do when they saw the light at the end of the tunnel, right? There was revenge spending. And this is what we have been observing. People are going, or rather upgrading 4x as to what their original choice would have been. If they are buying a whiskey worth 2,500, they said, "Oh, I got my vaccine. Let's wait for 3 more days and let's celebrate." So what that resulted in is that them buying a 10,000 rupee whiskey just to celebrate that milestone. So I think it was the whole factor of being imposed and being restricted, which kind of led to that whole adventurous and sort of rebellious spending pattern. So yes, I think even in our sector, especially the retail offtake has been phenomenal since the wine shops have opened up again. So yeah.
Absolutely, Neeraj. I mean, I've seen that happening as well with a lot of my family and friends. Like once they got double vaccinated, they were just out there ready to celebrate, and they wanted the best of the best, because also for so long they were just living in subjugation, that okay, when am I going to get to go out, when am I going to get to celebrate and just be around people, and that itself alone was a call for celebration, just being around people.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. So Majida, your thoughts on the whole luxury reaching new heights? Did you experience the same with your industry as well?
Yes, indeed, because Nykaa One is an online platform. And to build on to what Neeraj said, the whole focus that was outside shifted to yourself because there was no social life. From a consumer insight point of view, your only focus was you and who you live with. And which is why, there was a lot of disparity in the wealth distribution, but it also resulted in a boom for luxury because people were looking to spend on themselves. And you'd ask me why, how did makeup sell? I think that was one of the obvious questions that you'd ask me. But I think in a country like ours, occasions don't stop. They just got a bit restricted, more with family, not in public. But we're a country and a culture that doesn't stop no matter what.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you all for your very, very valuable inputs. My next question is specifically to Apurva and Majida. So although we did kind of touch upon, you did touch upon the same thing in your previous answer, but talking specifically about beauty and fashion and lifestyle and beauty sector, do you think that because of COVID, it has actually become in a way an enabler? It's like a blessing in disguise that e-commerce boomed even more. Like, have you experienced that? Okay, because of COVID, maybe you've experienced really something unprecedented in terms of sales or in terms of, in general, the whole consumer behavior. What's been your experience on that, specifically talking about fashion and beauty sector?
So I manage the e-commerce for the Collective. Collective, for everyone's benefit, is a multi-brand luxury retailer. E-commerce was a channel for sales, never the focus for the sales. It was one channel where you could get the customers to view everything which you've got. But with pandemic, I'm right now the focus for the business because the sales have like tenfolds from 2019 to today, our daily run rate is 10 folds of where we were. And overall, as a contribution to sales to the channel, ABF for Aditya Birla itself, we've grown dramatically. Now, why this would have happened, and that's what one, we alluded to it in our previous answer also, that one thing is that people want to celebrate and they are going out a little extra every time they are going and shopping. But that's not just it. For luxury specifically, I feel that anyways, it was going through a movement towards digital only in the last 3 years. And we were seeing that in probably by 2025, we would have hit this number. But with pandemic, what has happened is we moved faster into that. So for me, one is definitely digital marketing and digital presence for the luxury segments globally as well as in India has scaled up. There was a lot more enablement from the management also to go out and do whatever to get the customers. And that's helped because there is definitely wealth in India. The wealth has not changed from before to after. What Neeraj and Majida also said, that there is disparity between how wealth is distributed, but wealth is there, and that with access to through online has made it possible for these consumers to shop into all of.
Yeah.
So they have become informed, one, through this marketing initiative. Second, they know now that there is a possibility to buy and even return whenever they want to, which has definitely helped grow the e-commerce channel a lot faster. And that wouldn't have been an option if they were not subjugated in their home and they did not feel controlled. It would have still happened at that slow pace. And the last thing which I see specifically helped us grow in Collective was that we luxury at the end of the day is a lot of look, feel, touch, experience. You cannot just tell people that hurry now at 50% off, that will sell everything, not just luxury, but it's not how luxury brands are built. So what we saw, for specifically for Collective, we were able to mobilize our store staff to drive sale online. So we were able to enable them to share catalog to their customer base and in general drive communities and then drive sales online. And those were the 3 things which helped us really grow the channel sales. And I feel that this sale is not just revenge buying into luxury, but I also feel that in general, people have become a little more caring about themselves, a little more self-care, a little more reevaluating what priorities are after having stayed indoors for such a long time and seeing how health could change or make the game in a day's time. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense what you said, and I totally agree. And I also feel that before we move on to what Majida also has to add to that, I quickly want to just also say that in our, like, because I'm from the education and research background, we have this research right now that's going on, especially about the post-COVID, luxury consumer, and we're talking that there's going to be 2 types of consumers. One is a confident consumer and one is a curious consumer. Confident consumer, even post-COVID, might not want to immediately shift to offline purchase because they know what they want, they know where to get it from. They are not really looking for someone to come and counsel them on what they should buy. They will, just for safety reasons, they would want a good experience, and any brand or retailer that is willing to give them that good experience, they will just go and shop online. Just because they are very, very cautious and they don't have time and they don't want to indulge and they don't want to meet random people just maybe by going into a crowded mall. And the curious consumer is the one who's probably just, was getting exposed to luxury maybe pre-COVID or during COVID. And they might browse online, they might even buy a few products online, but eventually they would want immediately, as soon as, like what you guys were speaking about, revenge shopping, the moment things open up, they would want to go, they would want to, go and experience the store, the physicality of it. They would want to do that. So I think even post-pandemic, once things normalize, there will be a set of people who will eventually switch to online buying long-term if they know what they want, So I think, especially with respect to beauty and fashion, online is a big enabler. It's a huge enabler. So thank you so much, Apurva, for sharing your valuable insights. Majida, what about you? What's your take on the whole e-commerce boom? Do you think it's kind of helped the beauty sector? COVID has
Sure,
helped?
definitely. I mean, it was a logical transition because of what happened during lockdown, and it was unprecedented. No one ever imagined that the shift to online. We all saw presentations, we all saw numbers of the digital penetration in India, but this is fast forward 10 years. So, because of the unavailability of the channel, it's logical why e-commerce took off. And again, it's exactly what you said. The second part I'd say is luxury in the experience of shopping. So true luxury is saving time, true luxury is convenience. And anyone who's a luxury customer, I mean, like you said, if they know what they want, for them, time is luxury, and it's natural that it's going to be online. To add to it, for makeup, I think there are a lot of AI tools that have been used online, and I've seen a lot of other luxury, non makeup and non beauty
Jewelry.
luxury.
Jewelry is also doing it.
A lot of virtual try-ons, and that's helping it even more. 3D
Yes.
3D views, virtual try-ons, and the convenience of delivery and return. So there's no two questions about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thank you so much, both. Neeraj, next question is, for you specifically. So you just mentioned, you just spoke about it, that, wines and spirits normally, people want to drink because they want to celebrate. So it's always considered like a celebratory expense, Has the consumer perception towards spending on expensive alcohol changed post-pandemic? And I want to add one more point here. Celebratory, and you celebrate with people. Now, obviously, COVID, you're sitting alone, just chilling, maybe virtually celebrating your party, which I've done twice already now since 2020. You're alone at home, celebrating your birthday, having a drink by yourself. So do you think that it's not just about enjoying it with people, but also enjoying it for yourself? What's your opinion? Do you think the behavior has changed towards buying expensive alcohol?
You know how we analyze this situation. It's very interesting, actually. Last year, when you saw, like you said, birthdays and anniversaries are pretty big, right? You pop a champagne, or you open a very good aged single malt, maybe a 25-year-old malt whiskey, or whatever you prefer, right? But what we found out, that now all 7 days have become working days, and all 7 days have become weekends. So depending on how it goes for you, right? You may be on Zoom calls the whole day, but in the evening, suddenly, maybe post a workout, you feel like, oh, today is a day I've had a very long day.
I need to reward myself.
And my boss has actually, given me tons of work, which I've managed to somehow do. And I want to really feel good, right? So it was something that went against conspicuous consumption that I have spoken about before, but something that you do to please yourself. A very hedonistic sort of an attitude was observed, right? So the drinking occasions increased while we remained at home. And be it, were you fired by your boss for doing something wrong? Or was it the first virtual conference that you got right? It was a special occasion. There you drank in grief, here you drank in ecstasy. So that's what I said. And of course, with the disposable incomes that a few fortunate of us people who managed to retain their jobs, it kept on increasing because you were spending only for your necessities, right? Then suddenly you see, oh, my bank balance is looking pretty decent, and I have my closest wine retail shop available at a click of few buttons on WhatsApp, and I'm getting pictures as to what malt whiskey is available at a certain discounted price, and it's coming at my doorstep. So this was what we saw, and these celebratory occasions became everyday occasions. So, and accordingly, the whole spurt in this entire retail growth of alcohol is what we see because of this. Is my analogy behind it, or this is my understanding or our research behind it. Very interesting, actually. If you go on
absolutely. And what you said, like I think you have to give it, to even small retailers, big retailers, small retailers. They were really so I don't know, like
very
quick.
opportunistic, I would say.
Yeah,
Very
like
opportunistic.
WhatsApp and like calls. WhatsApp was, I think, amazing. Like, this is the brochure. This is, I mean, just tell me what you want, and it's gonna be there in like 24 hours.
Now, for example, to elaborate more, I stay in a gated community, right? So there are 2-3 wine shops here. They give special rates on alcohol only for us who stay at Dosti Acres at Vada. Okay, so you get special rates because you are from there. So everyone from WhatsApp is sending them their weekend orders, right? And they have MOQs also, by the way. You have to order worth 5,000 rupees. You have to order worth 10,000.
And I think the consumer would, because you would want to avoid those. I don't know how it was in other cities, but I'm sure all of you resonate with me when I say this. Bombay, Mumbai wine shops were some other. It felt some different experience. So when they did open up, so otherwise it was all black market, and this was happening. There's a lot of things. I think we saw a lot of different kinds of things happening during this 1.5 year, and hence we are here to talk about that. So coming, on the same note, I think, Apurva, my next question to you is, as we said, we saw a lot of different things happening. I think one of the other things also that I noticed during this COVID times is suddenly my parents, who were very like not too much into mobile phones and gadgets and this and that, suddenly they are, reading things on Facebook, they're reading things on Instagram, they're clicking on links, and they're going and reading articles online, everything online. Because even like my parents are from Gurgaon, so even the newspaper was not being delivered, of course. So everything was online, phones, say, watch and iPads and phones. So I think in general, the amount of data that a customer is being exposed to and also is consuming in terms of reading, in terms of watching videos, everything had grown a lot since 2020 March. I think till date, because now that they know how to use it, they are very comfortable.
Very comfortable, they're kind of addicted also. It's
addicted, and they will
forward.
A few
years back.
So do you think that there are any other trends? This is definitely one thing that we've also seen brands, I'm sure you've also, in your own organization and other organizations as well, you've seen that how brands have kind of harnessed this aspect, and they have also increased their data, the kind of data sharing that they do, or content sharing rather, instead of data sharing, that they do towards consumers, whether it's on IG, in Instagram, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's Facebook, otherwise website also. I think they keep updating regularly. But any other trend apart from this do you see going forward, coming in the fashion segment particularly, that because of this whole data consumption and this whole data or content sharing rather, any other trends do you foresee brands picking up to stay relevant in the coming period?
So again, breaking down this question, when this consumption has increased, the attention span has also gone down, especially in the segment which we try to target. Earlier 30-second videos used to be a successful format of advertising, even online. But like, if the customer is not viewing till 10 if you're not making an impact within first 3 to 5 seconds, then you are probably not making
wow. Okay.
So I think the kind of content which you need to create to communicate with these consumers have changed, and should you have, as a brand, one needs to keep rethinking of how you tell the story, because now everyone in the market has realized the importance of online, and pretty much everyone is online trying to tell their story in some format. If you were to probably put some of these creatives in front of the consumer and ask them which brand it belongs to, people may not even be able to distinguish. So I think differentiated, short span effective content would be one. Second thing is, while brands have a lot of data about this consumer now, earlier when a person would walk into our store, especially I'm speaking primarily for fashion industry, we would know probably your mobile number, email ID, and if the customer wants to participate in the loyalty program, then we might know their birthdays. Online, we know now which websites they're visiting, even which stores they're standing in, and what content they're consuming, and so on. So I think the second big differentiator for any brand to remain relevant would be to change this conversation from brand to consumer to brand to the person. So being able to personalize to the point where you're talking to this individual rather than to a cohort of consumer. So if you shopped 5 things in the market, in the collective store, the 6th product, I know what you're going to buy. And
Yeah.
I'll be able to tell you exactly on the day or approximately on the day when you are going to buy and be able to influence that purchase.
Absolutely.
Ability to use that data and translate this customer conversation into individual focused would be the big trend going forward. And I think that's the only way one would remain relevant in this crowd of online and digital.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Apurva. Majida, my next question is to you. I wish I could see you, Majida, but I know.
Wish too. I think you really need a better IT team, because
No, I
right
think,
from the starting, the registration went on loop, and then I put the registration
okay, normally
on,
that
and
doesn't
then
happen. Now, normally
yeah,
that
I
doesn't
know. I've
happen.
sent the screenshots to Rajpreet, and then I was
Okay.
trying to switch the video on, and it says that the host has disabled your video. I was trying to
Okay.
allow video for participants, but I think the main host needs to do that. And then I tried logging in through my phone, and it was the same issue. So I'm really sorry to everyone
No.
who's
I'm
attending
sorry that you
this
had to
call.
go through all of this.
I'm really sorry, because I don't like to be late, and two, it's terrible that I can't, the video is not on. Anyway,
Yes.
I think
So
while the IT figures it, we can talk about what we're supposed to talk.
Sure. So I wanted to ask you the next question. Talking specifically about, of course, the beauty segment. Of course, I think it's seen a lot of growth in the recent times. And what do you think has led to this, given that now mostly people are covering their faces with masks? I think this is a question that, it's been my question as well. Like, why are people still buying? And there have been so many. So my very, very close friend is a makeup artist, and she works on these web series and everything. And whenever there's a new interesting brand coming, she'll always update me that, oh, Charlotte Tilbury is here. Then she told me that the other day Morph is here, and this brand is here, that brand is planning to come, this brand is selling this product. And and I'm just like, I want to know, like, do you think that people are still buying the same, or what, or even more, even though they are covering half their face with masks? What's happening there?
I think even before the pandemic, makeup was on a boom phase. Of course, it wasn't so much online, but if you realize with the whole COVID status, there are as many YouTube videos of people wake up and watch a YouTube video for breakfast, and I think somewhere that effect has had its impact on our sales. So whether someone is using it to go out or not, I think people are in the phase of trying new things. In a country like ours, it was a compact kajal market, and then you have everyone you ask on this call or even off this call knows what a highlighter is, knows what an eyebrow pencil is, knows what a primer is. So I mean, that's also happened because of a lot of content online. And I think that's what's led to the boom, to answer your question. Again, it's a form of marketing in a lot of ways, because had this content and had this awareness not been there, maybe the impact on makeup during pandemic would not have been the way we saw it. But of course, without telling you what happened in Nykaa, it's not that, I mean, it's already on a high growth path, but skincare did overtake makeup for a bit. So, I mean, naturally, because people were at home, bath and skin took over, but not to say that makeup fell by half, not at all. So, yeah, I think it's the phenomenon of marketing, of content, of this whole influencer brigade. That's makeup artist brigade.
Just out of curiosity, do you think brands would or are or should start I don't know, mask resistant makeup or mask like irritant free makeup or skincare? Like, I mean, everybody is going to be wearing masks. I don't know about you guys, but I feel that at least for the next 2 years, even if COVID doesn't go, subsides, or it rises, just out of that whole hygiene factor, I think people would want to wear masks when they are stepping out. And there are some professions, I'm sure you agree, that require you to put on makeup every single day. So do you think brands should come up with mask resistant or some kind of, that it doesn't affect your makeup, even if you're wearing a very strong protection on the face? What's your take on that?
So, while you speak, that's already been done because you have transfer proof lipstick, and
free
it's
lipstick,
been
yeah.
and it's been sold exactly as that, mask proof makeup. You would have
Oh,
seen a
wow.
couple of brands, consumer brand campaigns that do talk about, mask proof makeup. It's already being done. Of course, the focus in makeup shifted to eyes, but and lips would have dropped slightly, but there's
Right.
always a solution, and people have already done that. Another problem on the consumer end was obviously the concern on acne, like you said, for skincare.
Yeah.
So I think that's also been called out, and you're seeing solutions for everything. Now everyone knows the formula of what you use on a pimple, thanks to brands like The Ordinary and the takeoff on it, which is the Minimalist. So I think it's reached the audience way before it's natural time.
That's great. That's good to hear. Thank you, Majida. Or Neeraj, over to you for my next question. Talking about luxury can never be a necessity, but has the pandemic allowed sporadic growth in luxury due to experimentation into new categories of goods? So, like, in terms of any brands that you have seen have not moved away, but also moved into certain new directions because of the pandemic, and maybe experimented a little bit with what they were doing earlier. It could be health related, it could be whatever related, depending on your category. And have you seen any examples in your category, the Alcobev segment, of brands having experimented into new territories which they were not doing earlier?
Of course, I mean, there are two angles to it. One being a commercial and one being a CSR oriented angle. All Alcobev companies, including ours, we started manufacturing hand sanitizer because we are in the business of ethyl alcohol. And talking about John Distilleries, we supplied it to the frontline heroes, like police officers, medical staff in the state of Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Goa during the entirety of last year.
Wow.
And so did market leaders and other companies in the Alcobev industry. Now, this is the CSR angle of it. Commercially, if you see what did enthusiasts about beverages miss the most about last year, that they could not go to restaurants, the vanity bit of it, right? The fancy drinks, the whiskey sours, your old fashions, your Negronis. So suddenly bottled cocktails became a segment. And now, if you see, there are multiple brands that are making bottled ready to drink cocktails. So what happens is, it's a process, and not as anyone is not as adventurous. Let's say I am, that I will have bar tools at home and I'll mix my own drinks, and I'll, take the effort to sort of do that for myself. And some people don't have the time. So then you end up ordering something like a Jerry's now that is popular, that made out of Goa. That is another segment. The other segment was RTD, or ready to drink seltzers, hard seltzers. Now they have a healthier angle also, which they want to play with low amount of alcohol, low amount of sugar, natural flavors. So these sort of ready to drink cocktails or ready to drink premixes have been the latest category to have done well. And talking about a luxurious angle that actually did well in last year, which was the first year of COVID, is the bottle you see behind me. That's Mithuna by Paul John in the gray box. And Mithuna stands for the zodiac sign Gemini. And this, incidentally, happens to be the third best whiskey in the world.
Wow.
And we launched it last year. So we launched it in the year of COVID. It got a staggering 97 on 100 at the Whiskey Bible 2021. It beat the likes of Kavalan, Suntory's Yamazaki, Hakushu, Hibiki, Nika, the great Japanese single malt whiskeys.
Yeah.
So yeah, the best in Asia and the third best in the world is sitting right behind me at a modest price tag of 22,000 rupees for a bottle. And we managed to sell out. Few of them, of course, I have. Luckily, I managed to buy a few for myself. But that's what I'm saying. This expression came out in the COVID year, and look where it is. Critical
Yeah.
acclaim check, commercial value check. So
Yeah.
actually, we did not see anything that would hinder the progress of a liquor brand within last year and this year. So on a retail front, they did exceedingly well. And on premise, which are restaurants and bars, obviously, because of the restriction that they are under, is why brands are underperforming. Otherwise, they will also slowly pick up.
Yeah, and I don't know, like a friend of mine was telling me, that when restaurants are fully open,
Yeah.
prices of drinking in restaurants is gonna spike up like tremendous, like by a lot. So
Yeah.
that's something that's you think it may happen, like because shut for so long.
Yeah, again, there are two reasons. One is because their beverage sale has been low for quite
Yeah.
some time, for obvious reasons, because of
Yeah.
4 p.m. restrictions
Yeah.
or night curfews, whatever. And the second reason is the excise policy also. So when their landing price for the product increases, obviously they'll pass it on to the consumer as well. Right, and taxes in our country have never been kind to anyone,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
in our sector. So
Yeah.
so yeah, but it is what it is. So 22,000 launched in 2020, sold out and
And
doing
I just
exceedingly well.
love the way it's, sitting in your background and,
Yeah,
we.
I'll get a closer look at it if anyone's a Gemini. So that's your star sign logo there. It's Mithuna.
Nice.
Comes at
Thank
a
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Neeraj, would you have one for every star sign soon?
Oh, well, that's the plan. I mean, eventually grow that we have a zodiac series, right? So
You must,
there
because
is Kanya. We started off with Kanya, which was Virgo, and that actually took the world by storm in 2018 because it was the first Indian whiskey that was voted as the best Asian whiskey in the world back in
Wow.
2018. So Kanya stands for Virgo, and this, of course, Mithuna stands for Gemini. Don't know what will come next.
I am getting ideas for my next, workshop on whiskeys and single malts, for my students from you. So thank you for that.
Think aloud, no problem.
You should also have a tasting then, Smita.
Absolutely. We've already
Students will
spoken
be
about
really
it.
happy.
I've already spoken
Wow.
about it with Neeraj that we need to, as soon as things are, better, we can do a tasting session in groups, smaller groups with social distancing, but that needs to happen because we cannot, luxury needs to be experienced. Absolutely.
Yeah. And we are making the purest form of single malt whiskey right here in our own backyard. So you ought to try, and it's all Indian,
Yeah,
You're mighty
that's
proud to know that all
that's what
ingredients
makes us
used
proud.
are all Indian, man. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think it was high time that an Indian single malt whiskey took the lead, or at least was part of the pack, because you always see these Scotch whiskeys coming from Scotland, from here, there, everywhere, and you don't see even Japanese whiskey. Indians love Japanese whiskey.
Oh my God, talk about
But
it.
now I can see, and I think I think the reach of Paul John is also pretty good. I recently went to Ahmedabad, and even though it's a dry state, I found quite a few there, and I was surprised.
Oh, fantastic!
Really
Good.
surprised.
Super.
So yeah.
And the interesting thing here, all of you at the audience, Paul John is Asia's most awarded whiskey distillery with over 300 international awards. So the Japanese whiskeys that you talk about, Suntory, Beam Suntory's lineup, we have beaten them in terms of critical acclaim too. So like you said, it's high time we become the hero. An Indian product becomes the hero.
And it's a whiskey drinking country, that's how it's
absolutely
called.
The largest amount of whiskey drinking in the world happens in our country.
Absolutely. So my last question to the entire panel, and I would also request members in the audience, you can now also start typing your questions on the chat if you have any questions. I don't promise that I'll be able to take everybody's questions because we will have less time, but I'll try to take at least 2 to 3 questions, and if more, if provided we have time, because we have to respect the time as well. So you can start typing your questions on the chat, and in the meantime I will go ahead and ask my last question to the panel. So this question is to all of you, so please, feel free to step in and answer as you seem fit. How can luxury companies, all sectors, all industries, ensure that post-pandemic boom, the whole post-pandemic boom that we've all been talking about, becomes more sustainable and beneficial at the same time? So sustainability is the angle here that we are majorly talking about, that how can brands maintain sustainability, the sustainability factor, but at the same time also be able to reap the benefits that they are reaping right now. So what are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, Smita, by sustainable, do you mean sustainable from an environment perspective?
Sustainable
or the
practices, sustainability as a whole, as a company. When we talk about sustainability, of course, ethics, code of conduct, environmental sustainability. So in general, holistically, as an organization, to be sustainable.
So I'll go first because I'm in a rush.
Sure.
I need to hit soon. I think I'll take that question in 2 parts. In my personal opinion, one is that there is an increasing consciousness for sustainability across, whether it's a service or, it's a luxury brand. Recycling and, it's already happening. And I think Gen Z will be more demanding of it. So brands will have to adapt and adapt soon. I'm sure you know that Unilever is committed to it. A lot of luxury brands are committed to it. So
Yes.
that will happen. And in case of sustainable sales, I think they have found new markets. And I think on the other hand, we say stop consumption. On one hand, we're increasing the audience, but I think it will be sustainable. I will say for a country like India, the penetration is not too deep. So it would be the emerging, it will be the new China in the coming decade. You have this customer base that you formed thanks to the COVID boom, and then you have this whole ripple effect of the economy spilling over even downwards. So there'll be new recruitment of customers, and I think that's how it is definitely sustainable. There'll be a lot of millionaires in the next decade, that's for sure.
Fingers crossed. That's great. So thank you, Majida. Neeraj and Apurva, any inputs, anything to add to what Majida just said?
Go ahead, Apurva. Go ahead.
I was thinking what Majida said already, that all the luxury brands are committed towards becoming more sustainable. So that part of the business will happen. But I still feel that the recycling of, especially in apparel segment, is a little distant dream in India. I think that would be the next trend, which it's taken up large in US, but in India there was Flyro, which tried to not recycle but help people consume ethnic luxury garments, but it did not scale up in India because we are not the kind of people who are ready to wear what somebody else has worn. So I think part of recycling may take still some more time to happen. From sustainable sales point of view, I already said, I think how we talk to our consumers, how differentiated we are, is the only way to retain the customer. Especially in luxury, I think while experience online is better, where you say you're sitting at your home saving time, but that's pretty much being made possible by each and every e-commerce player. How do you then differentiate over and above that is going to be key for sustaining this kind of sales, because some of these consumers, at least in the apparel segment, want to be pampered, be told what they need to wear. Not everyone is the confident consumer, as you already rightly pointed out. So I think that would drive the next set of sustainable sales for us.
Neeraj, what about you? Thank you, Apurva. Yes.
Talking about my sector, what we understood is that every part, right from the production to the supply chain within the alcobev industry, you can fix sustainability at each and every level if you were to give it a tier. For example, water is the biggest ingredient, right, that we need. So there are companies, and I don't want to name brands here for obvious reasons, that are water positive, whereby the water that is used in the distillery, and they use reverse osmosis to purify it, and also have rainwater harvesting done within the premises. So they are making sure that the earth gets more water than
Yeah.
they're themselves using, which is so very interesting,
Very,
because
very.
when we consider the distilling process, it has tons and tons and liters, hectoliters of water that is used. Then the other bit is we use grains. So a company like ours, we use the spent grains and we send it back to the fodder. So send it back to the cattle as fodder. So again, and this is distributed to the borders of Karnataka and south of Goa where our plant is. Moving to the packaging bit of it, there are other companies who are doing it, but the paper is recycled. We are using more mono cartons. So some companies are also exploring to stop the usage of glass bottles completely and have started prototype designing of recycled paper bottles. So you will see that happening a lot in the coming years within our sector. Then, of course, packaging material. There is a world famous brand that have redesigned their packaging. It's a champagne brand.
Okay.
Came in the news for all the right reasons. That they've done a phenomenal job to reduce the carbon emissions and the carbon footprint that their company was leaving, and they aim to be carbon positive, emission positive by the next half a decade or so. So at every point within the Alcobev production and supply chain, we can see sustainable practices. Of course, India has to evolve to that, where the Western world is right now. The distilling, the energy for the actual heat usage in distilling, some companies have started using solar panels and not the traditional coal or electric energy that is used. Of course, that may pollute the environment in some conditions. So very interesting practices that are being observed.
Yeah, good to know. Thanks, Neeraj.